again, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Mount Union Football Huddle. I'm Review Sports Editor Mike Brown, joined by Mount Union Football Beat Writer Jeff Zupanic. Jeff, welcome again.
Thanks, Mike.
The Raiders just keep rolling through the playoffs and doing it on the road this year, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say uncharted territory, but it's, nothing doesn't happen often, that's
Right.
for sure. What they've done, first two games on the road, a handful of teams have done it, and they've been what you've expected, going
Right.
on the road,
Yeah.
just against some very quality teams.
Oh,
and
outstanding
they
teams,
played
yeah.
outstanding, especially in the second half of both of those games.
Yeah, they've made great adjustments, have they not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah.
Whether or not they haven't made too many of them public to what they've done, but you could see the difference of, especially on the defensive end. The offense has been very consistent
Right.
for an entire game. No turnovers by the offense, and the defense has been very opportunistic,
Sure.
certainly in the second half.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about this week's opponent and the trip to Alfred, New York on Saturday, let's look back a little bit more about last week's game. What area did Mount make adjustments at halftime? They were down early, were they not, Jeff?
Yeah.
And came back, made the great adjustments, and then took care of business in the second
Yeah,
half.
down 21-7. I believe it was midway through the second quarter. Then they got a very important touchdown right before the half that made it 21-14. That if I had to group it right now, I would say probably the most important touchdown of the season for them, because Johns Hopkins was going to get the ball to start the second half, and down 14 and giving the other team the ball sometimes could be a recipe for disaster.
Right, yeah.
So they're very big, and then they came out in the second half and got the stop, didn't allow any points. And I think the biggest thing was they just kept Johns Hopkins quarterback in the pocket, and that really disrupted his vision, and it didn't allow him to create a lot of the extending plays and the broken plays that Johns Hopkins had in that first half.
Sure. Is there anybody from out? I know a lot of guys from out played really well last week. Is there anybody you wanted to single out from last week's game?
I think the two guys that came to the press conference afterwards were Mike Vidal, defensive lineman, that had 3 sacks, and Brian Groves, the defensive back. Both are team captains, got picked team captain, first-year starters, so that just showed the respect that they have from their teammate.
Yeah.
They're guys that have played a lot, both juniors, seen a lot of action, but haven't really started. And Groves talked about what it was like defensively of guarding the wide receivers when you have a scrambling quarterback. It just, how you can't look at the quarterback and you have to watch the receiver. And then Vidal talked about just keeping that cage in the second half and just keeping the pressure on him, and we saw the results.
Sure. Well, let's turn the clock ahead to this Saturday. Mount goes to Alfred, New York to play the Saxons. Mount has played Alfred in its past in the playoffs, correct?
Yeah, 2010. That was Alfred's longest run they've ever had in the playoffs. They got to the quarters, and they had to come here to Alliance. Mount Union won that game 37-7. But Alfred has a new head coach, and first time they've been back to the playoffs since then. And they're traditionally a team that wins 7, 8, 9 games, but this year undefeated 12-0. They kind of got over the hump. Very senior-laden team. They have 13 senior starters this year.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about them? Are they their run-pass ratio, are they 50-50, Jeff?
I think they tend to run it a little bit more. Their quarterback is a dual threat. That he's the team's leading rusher, and he's thrown for about 2,400 yards. He had 44 total TDs, which his points, he leads Division III in the most amount of points, 24 passing, 20 running. So it's, without seeing them on film yet, just from what I understand, they're a lot by quarterback run. So it's not like he doesn't break down plays and then beat you. It by design runs.
Sure.
And they got a very, senior linebacker who the Empire 8 defensive player of the year, and he's one of the 10 finalists for the Gallardi this year.
Yeah. I know I asked you this last week too, Jeff. When we look around the country, we're down to 8 teams left. Are there any surprises in your mind of the final 8?
Not the teams involved, but maybe just some of the game. I'm surprised Alfred's had a pair of 6-point games to this point. And the first one they had to go overtime, and then last week they were up by 6 late in the game. They got a goal line stop on the 1-yard line. There was some debate whether or not the Western New England kid got into the end zone, but the officials were very confident in their call that he was stopped short. Two games, that really went down to the wire for them. And John Carroll was in a dogfight last week with Wesley, and St. Thomas and Oshkosh, Whitewater, and Mary Hardin Baylor had, they've had the margins you would expect for some of the, I don't want to say lesser opponents, but they've been the stronger team in the game. But, I mean, there have been a lot of quality games. I think there have been 7 games that have been decided by touchdown or less so far.
Wow, how about
and
that?
interesting enough, Mount Union and Alfred have been involved in 3 of those 7 games.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hopefully, I know Mount has traveled well so far on the road for the playoffs game.
Yeah, very well. I mean, what you would expect. Obviously, the first game, trips haven't been too bad, about 4 hours. Baltimore's about 5, and Thanksgiving weekend. But just typically that Thanksgiving weekend, the crowds are not as high as you would expect
Sure.
because of the holidays. But
Yeah.
yeah, they've done a very good job, and hopefully the weather doesn't keep fans away tomorrow, but I
Right.
think they should have a decent showing tomorrow.
Right. Now this, compared to the past 2 weeks, as far as travel on the road for Mount Union, this is actually probably the closest road trip so far for Mount,
Yeah,
is it
it'll
not?
be the closest. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hobart was about just a little over 5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about 5 hours, 10 minutes or so to Baltimore,
Yeah.
and then this week it should be right around the 4 hour.
Yeah.
Again, barring any weather or
Yeah,
traffic
sure.
delayed. But yeah, it should be it's just southwest of Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, hopefully a lot of Purple Raider fans make the trip there. It sounds like that would be a lot of fun, and I would think Mount would be a favorite. They take care of business and move on again, and that's why we play the game.
Yeah, I mean Alfred, just from talking with Mount Union's SID Lenny Reich, Alfred is expecting, a big crowd to come to the game, and
Right.
they've said this is the biggest game they've ever had on their campus.
Sure.
So there should be some excitement in the air for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Well, I think that'll do it for this week's edition of the Mount Union Football Huddle. For Jeff Zupanic, this is Mike Brown. We'll see you on the gridiron.